Faithful during uncertainty. We all face these moments in our life where we face these difficult moments. They're uncertain moments. We don't know how they're going to turn out. We don't know how we're going to handle the situations. But during these moments when we face these difficult moments, we're going to kind of hit on this morning from the children of Israel, because without a doubt they faced their moments of uncertain times. And they didn't know how things were going to happen. They didn't know how they were going to be provided for. They didn't know what was going to take place, and they had moments of fear and doubt. And I think a lot of times we give them a little hard time for that. We were a little hard on them. But are we so different? No, I don't think so. A group of botanists traveled to the Alps for rare specimens of flowers. At one point, they came across a beautiful flower on the rock ledge they could not reach. They saw a shepherd boy far away, so they called him and offered him some money if he would allow himself to be let down by them with a rope to get the flower. The boy wanted very much to earn the money. He looked down at the ledge and he looked at the strange men and he said, "No." They offered him a little more money and he was tempted to say yes. Still, he wasn't sure about trusting those strangers. He wasn't 100% sure about trusting them. I can't blame him. I won't just place my trust in the hands of my life, in the hands of some random stranger that I'd never met before. I can't blame him being hesitant with these trusts. Then all of a sudden, his eyes lifted up. And he said, "Wait here," he told them. And he ran off about 10 minutes. Later, he came back with another man. "I will get the flower for you," he told the men, "if you will let my father hold the rope." In times of uncertainty and doubt, when we feel as if we are at the end of our rope, we need the assurance of someone that is there holding the rope, or better still yet, holding us, holding on to us. David expressed his own confidence in the Lord. David, the man after God's own heart, expressed his confidence that no matter where he might travel on earth, or in the realms of earth, there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand hold me. Psalm 139, verse 10. To give us a little backdrop of this message this morning, as we're hitting on and we're getting into, Israel had just been delivered from 400 years of oppression. They were in 400 years of bondage. They'd just been delivered from this great oppression of 400 years under Egypt. And after being in bondage or captive to the Egyptians for 400 years, to commemorate this day of their deliverance, to offer a day of commemoration, a day of remembering the day they were delivered by the mighty hand of the Lord through His marvelous works that were clearly displayed in the plagues. We've seen the plagues in Egypt. We all know how that played out. And we all know that was nothing short of a miracle in and of itself. Okay? He delivered them through all His mighty works displayed through these great plagues that fell upon Egypt. And somewhat of a very clear picture and evidence that it fell on Egypt gave somewhat of a clear picture of evidence that God was superior to all the other gods. Because you remember, Egypt was full of gods. They had all kinds of false idols. False gods for the sun and the night, and a god for the waters, and they had a lot of false gods. There were a lot of idols in Egypt. Okay? Now that they had left Egypt and Israel had left them behind, the Israelites had forgotten the power of God's mighty hand. And then they encamped out by the Red Sea. They looked off in the distance after just being delivered. Looked off in the distance and they saw Pharaoh and the Egyptians charging at them, rushing at them, coming at them full force. They were going to either try to take them back to Egypt, or they were going to kill every one of them, is what the Egyptians had in mind. That's what their goal was to do. And without a doubt, the Israelites had become fearful, or they were afraid, seeing the vast army approaching them. Their hearts were filled with fear, and it was here that they fell into a panic mode, if you will. They began to panic, and with their hearts filled with fear and distress, they began to accuse Moses and ask him, "Why did you bring us here to die? Why did you bring us here just to die? You delivered us out of Egypt, out of the hands of our oppressors. God used you, but why did you just bring us here to die? Because after all, they could see on the other side, behind them was behind them was Egypt, chasing them and was pursuing them. On the other side was what? The Red Sea. They were stuck between a rock and a hard place. They had nowhere to go, or so they thought. So they said, Moses, why did you bring us here to die? Why did you deliver us to this spot just for us to die? No doubt, they were thinking, hey, of course, I may have been a slave in Egypt. Yeah, we were slaves there, but at least I would have been alive even though I would have been in bondage. So they became fearful. Immediately, Moses spoke these amazing words of faith with the assurance to the people, telling them, and he made it very clear, the Lord will fight for you. In Exodus 14:14. It is here that we see his words being backed up by and strongly supported by how God parted the Red Sea. He sent the big wind that came down and parted the sea right before them. The Israelites had crossed safely on dry ground, arriving on the other side. As the Israelites crossed, arriving on the other side, being totally safe from harm, it was then that the Egyptians decided, hey, we're going to go after them. Now, I don't know about you. If I'd been pursuing people that I had in bondage, taking knowledge and thought of what had just happened in Egypt, just prior to this event, me seeing the waters part and the Egyptians crossing, or the Israelites crossing on the other side, through the Red Sea that was divided down the center, I don't think I really would have went much further. I said, you know what? You all just go right on. I don't think you're all on your own. You can do it. But no. The Egyptians said, no, more or less, we're coming after you. We're coming after you now. After the Israelites had crossed on dry ground, the Egyptians attempted to give chase and pursue them. And it was then that God immediately fought their battle for them. God immediately fought their battle for them right then. Exodus 14 concludes with the fact that the people feared the Lord and put their trust in Him, because we know what happened. When the Egyptians went and tried to pursue and cross through the Red Sea, what did God do? He brought the waters in on top of them and killed every one of them. And then Exodus 14 concludes with the fact that Israel feared the Lord and they began to trust in Him. Now, if it would have just stayed right there, that would have been amazing. Israel had already feared the Lord and they began to trust Him. And if that is as far as it went, that would have been great. But we can see times of trials and tribulations can kind of blind our eyes. They can kind of cause us to forget. However, we're about to see that the fear of the Lord is very short-lived. Israel's fear of the Lord is very short-lived at this moment. It doesn't take root. It isn't held in their hearts. It's very short-lived, and the people became, as they came to the desert of Shur, just east of where they had crossed the Red Sea. They traveled for 3 days, and they couldn't find any water to drink. So what do you think they began doing again? Now, one common thing that we can say about Israel, and we see it time and time again in the scriptures of what Israel does. What do? They began to complain. They began to complain. Well, you brought us here. And they just already forgotten about what had just taken place and the mighty deliverance that God had given them. So they began to complain again. You brought us here. We're in the middle of a desert. We have nothing at all to drink. They began to complain. They began complaining and moaning. Again, here the Lord once again provided what they needed, showing God's assurance. Hey, I'm going to provide for you. I'm a provider. I'm going to take care of you, fulfilling what He said He would do. I'm going to take care of you. It's okay. But as they moved further to the western edge of the Sinai Peninsula, the people's travels brought them to a place called Elim. E-L-I-M. And it's here upon this oasis, consisting of 12 wells they found and 70 palm trees. Our text today begins with the people's departure from Elim. They're going to depart Elim, and they're going to head toward Sinai. Okay? Before we get started, you have to give Moses some credit. We have to give Moses some credit here. He has demonstrated how the Lord was with him. He's dealt with a very discontented people, constantly complaining. Already, we can see complaints rising. We can see them begin to accuse Moses. We have to give Moses some credit. He has provided for them through God's power. God's provided for them. What does the Israelites do? Before we judge too harshly, what we do all the time, we also are complaining people. We become discontented with what we have. We become discontented with everything that's been given to us. And we become discontented with God's mercy and grace. We are constantly complaining about something, are we not? We complain about a lot of things. I guess, like I used in a sermon series here a little while back, we're like a bunch of Eeyores. Woe is me. Instead of being a happy Tigger bouncing around, we're like a bunch of Eeyores. Woe is me. And we don't focus on the blessings that God's already given us. When we are busy focusing on the problems of what could happen, what might happen, we neglect to see what did not happen. We neglect to see, hey, yeah, this bad thing happened here, but hey, at least it didn't go this far. This right here was a horrible thing that happened, yes, but at least it didn't do this. I may have been in a horrible accident, but hey, at least I survived. We neglect to look at the bright side of life. We neglect to see what didn't happen, what God prevented from happening, and what He has blessed us with. So number one, the people's accusation. People's accusation, verse 1. And they journeyed from Elim, and all the congregation of children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after they departed from the land of Egypt. Okay, it was without a doubt a very difficult journey. It was without a doubt a very difficult place to cross. There was a lot of coverage they had to go through. They had to travel a long distance. And it was difficult for the people to leave a place like Elim. What did we just read about Elim? They had palm trees. They had wells for water. A lot of the provisions were already there. So of course it was going to be difficult for the Israelites to leave Elim. Okay, we said, wow, how should we leave? And we got everything we need right here. It's going to be difficult for them to leave a place like Edom. They had abundance of the provision of water, and it was a very beautiful place. So we just read it. It could also be because the journey which they had to undergo takes them across the desert of Sin. Now, the word sin here, I don't want you to think that it's what we reference to as sin. Okay? Because it says the desert of Sin, it doesn't have the same meaning as sin, what we're thinking about. This is the name of the place, okay? It's located between Elim and it's located between Sinai and Elim. And it's in the scriptures we can find the account of Sinai being mentioned. This is the first time it's been mentioned in the scriptures. Okay? And then this is where we can refer to as the mountain of God, where He would reveal Himself to Israel and the surrounding region. Now the word sin here comes from the same Hebrew word root, which means rooted or grounded. And one thing I'd like to stress is not what we would reference to as sin as being an abomination to God or in defiance of God's word or in rejection of it. Okay, another thing we can note here is if the reader wants to paint and calculate the time that Israel had been, the time up until now, how long Israel had been out of bondage with Egypt, if you want to take time to calculate that fact and figure that out, it would be within about a month. So they'd only been out of deliverance for about a month. Some would say 15 days. Okay, they've only been out for about a month. Okay, now without a doubt, them just being a month out of bondage or 15 days out of bondage, it would seem that the power of God should be still pretty present in their mind. If a big, huge event had taken place 15 days or last month that you'd seen, okay, one big, huge event, would it not be still present in their mind? Probably. So the power of God that they had just witnessed should still be present in their mind. They should still be knowledgeable of what had already happened. How God had parted the Red Sea and they crossed on dry ground. How they were led by the pillar of fire. All this should be witnessed the power of God's deliverance. They'd witnessed His mighty power. And they should remember the same marvelous provisions, how He's provided for them. So, 1b, against Moses, verses 2 and 3. Against Moses and Aaron. Okay, the whole congregation of the people of Israel and the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron. They began to complain in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, "Oh, that we had died! We had died by the hand of the Lord in that land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, and where the bread were too full. For now you have brought us into this wilderness to kill us, the whole assembly, with hunger." Once again, oh, what it was like in Egypt. We were in bondage, but hey, at least we had a place to stay. We had food in our belly, and now we're here, and we're complaining again because we have nothing to eat. We have nothing to drink. A month back, or 15 days back, we just witnessed how God had delivered. He provided them with a way out, but now they began to focus on the problem. Again. So then they become grumbling and complaining, whining and crying. And as you're about to see, this is a never-ending story with Israel. It never ends. Moses is there all the time listening to them moan and whine and cry during his whole leadership era until he turns it over to Joshua. Okay? They complained because they did not have the food. The supplies they carried with them began to run out. Their murmuring was not completely without merit. They did need to eat. Did they not? They did need food to live on. And there was little available for food. However, the problem was they did not see the big picture. They didn't see what had taken place. They refused to look at the big picture. They didn't see the big picture, but Moses and Aaron did see it. They did see it. And now, I think if Moses hadn't seen it, I think he would have just threw his arms up there and said, "Well, there you go. You're on your own. You're on your own. I'm not helping no more. I'm tired of this whining and crying." And how many times do we as a parent, and I do this a lot, listen to your child whine and cry because they don't get their way. And eventually I'm like, "Would you just hush? I can't take it no more." And I can't imagine how many times Moses felt like just saying, "You know what? I'm done." But he did. He did. The only thing Israel saw was their present difficulty. They seen the present problems at hand. They didn't focus on the big picture. It was a good thing that Israel was not ruled by a democracy at this time. It's a good thing there wasn't, because I think Moses and Aaron would have probably been voted out, would they not? Yeah. If they had been voted out, it'd have been like you listened to the majority rule, and Moses and Aaron probably would have been killed, to be honest with you. In verse 31, it's where it says, "We sat by the pots of meat, and we ate the bread too full." That means they had all they wanted when they were in Egypt. You know, this is a very common description that takes place for those who murmur, or those who whine, those who complain, those who mope around, if you will. Here Israel had a selective remembrance. Know anybody like that? You only remember what you want to remember. You neglect to remember the blessings, so you focus on the problem. You have a selective remembrance of what God's provided for you. And that's what the people of Israel is doing here. They're very negative. They did not see the future right away, and they had twisted their past to support their complaining. I know a lot of people like that. I've been guilty of that. They say, "You brought us out of the wilderness to kill us in this whole assembly." This was another common practice among those who murmur. They insisted that Moses and Aaron had bad intentions for delivering them out of Egypt. Now imagine that. They'd seen how Moses had stood up with them and delivered the message of the Lord to Pharaoh. How Moses had stood up when they crossed the Red Sea and told them, "God will fight your battles for you." But now they say, "Hey, look, You brought us out, and now you're filled with evil intentions. Of course, Moses and Aaron had no interest in killing the people at all. They were being obedient to God. And this is a horrible accusation to make against Moses and Aaron. However, a complaining heart often finds it easy to accuse. It finds it easy to accuse the person that you're complaining against with the worst of motives. That's what a complaining heart does. We can take into account how they complained here as well. They groaned in their slavery. They cried out for help, and it went up to God. Now in their journey in the wilderness, they began to see their bondage in a sense of whole new life, thinking of how life was so much better in Egypt. Now imagine that. They complained when they're in Egypt. They're complaining in the wilderness when they're delivered out from Egypt. And now they begin to remember their life back in Egypt and say, hey, I want to go back to Egypt. They think life was so much better there. They had all the food they wanted, all the meat they wanted. And it began to be very appealing to the discontented heart. They were very discontent with those who were blinded by their unbelief. Because that's going to be a thing we'll see in Israel too. They were filled with a lot with unbelief. They'd witnessed many miraculous signs and wonders that God had already done. But they were filled a lot with unbelief. It is rather, however, not long after this, before this event took place in chapter 15, we find out how the people sung praises to the Lord for what He had done and accomplished by His power just prior to this. They had proclaimed terror and dread would fall on any of the nations that heard about the power of the Lord and His mighty works. Now fear and dread fall on God's own people as they allow their circumstances to control their situation, control their faith, instead of allowing their faith to control their circumstances. So number 2, the Lord's answer. Eventually the Lord's going to answer, is He not? Yep. I can picture, I wonder if God is sitting up there and saying, you know, really? Really? I just done all this for you people down there? I provided in ways that nobody else could? And now you're complaining? Really? I just wonder if God stood there and thought of this. So now number 2, we have the Lord's answer. Verses 4 through 8. It says this in verse 4. Then the Lord said to Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go and gather a certain quota that day, that I may test them, whether they will walk in my law or not. So God's going to send them some food. I'm going to test you. I'm going to see if you're going to be obedient. I'm going to see if you're going to be faithful. This gathering of bread would test the Israelites to their obedience. Whether or not they would do what God had instructed them to do. It will also reveal how faithful they are, if they're willing to adhere to His commands that He has given. God will provide, and they're responsible each day to go out and gather what His provisions were. He wasn't going to do it all for them. Now, He could have. And I wonder if they hadn't been such a discontented and complaining people, if God would have said, you know what, you don't have to do nothing. I'm just going to allow you to do it. But now, since you're content, you're being discontent and complaining and griping and whining and crying, I'm going to make you work for it. I wonder if God done that to kind of help reveal their heart. Without a doubt, He could have provided without them having to do anything. God will provide, and they're responsible to go out each day and gather the provisions He's blessing with. Number 2b, relate to the people. Okay. This message here that He's delivered to Moses is about to be relayed to the people. He's going to deliver it to the people. Verse 5 through 6. And it shall be on the 6th day they shall prepare what they bring in. And it shall be twice as much they gather daily. Then Moses and Aaron said to the people, the children of Israel, At evening you shall know that the Lord has brought you out of the land of Egypt. There is nothing said here that is specific in telling the Israelites what the evening will bring. There's nothing specific really tells us what the evening will bring. This is kind of an act of faith, trust, that will cause them to know the Lord. The context suggests and implies some miraculous provision that will bring knowledge. The people will learn that the Lord has not brought them all this way just to kill them. He didn't deliver them all this way just to kill them. Matter of fact, He's going to use Israel. All through history. All through the nation's history, He uses Israel. Up to present day. He uses Israel. He's going to use them. So He didn't just take them out to kill them. He didn't bring them out here just to watch them starve to death, as we read in the previous verses. He will now, however, provide for them in their travels as they, whether or not they're going to be obedient to Him. So verse 7. In the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, and He hears your complaints against the Lord. But what are we that you should complain against us? What are we that you should complain against us? Why are you complaining against me? I didn't do all this. I'm just doing what I'm told to do now. I've told people that. Don't jump on me. I'm just doing what I'm told to do. Done it in my job when I was surveying. Don't complain to me. It ain't my fault. I've got a person I have to answer to as well. Don't jump on me. I'm just doing what I'm told. So Moses kind of gives the same answer. It is very evident that not only can we see God, very evident that no one can see God and live, as we're told in Exodus 33:20. We can find the contrast to this account in 1 John 3:2, where He chooses to reveal His glory. He chooses to reveal His glory and give His people confidence. This is the first specific reference to the account of go revealing His glory to the people. So, it is without a doubt here that we've been given the accounts that they have seen the manifestations of God. Okay? They've seen it. They've seen the manifestation not so much of God, but of His power. It is, however, the first account as to Him revealing His glory to them. Okay? The Lord's glory will be more dramatically and more intensely manifested at Sinai when He establishes the old covenant, or His covenant, with the people and the Israelites, and calls Moses to Him from the mountain. And God's glory will also fill the tabernacle when it is completed in Exodus chapter 40, verses 34 to 35. Verse 7b, because He has heard your grumbling against Him, who are we that you should grumble against us? Without a doubt the people were grumbling, but they were petitioning Moses and Aaron, and they were very clear where their true motives lie, and that their complaints within their heart where they were really directed toward, and that was God. They were complaining toward God. They complained and grumbled against God Himself, and it wasn't Moses or Aaron that delivered the Israelites. Now we know that. Moses couldn't do it on his own. Moses actually tried to get out of it. He said, God, I can't do it. I'm a man of poor speech. God said, what's that in your hand? I can't do it. He said, I'll be with you. I'll be with you. Moses and Aaron couldn't do it by themselves. God done the delivering. Moses and Aaron were just the messengers. Verse 8. Also Moses said, this shall be seen when the Lord gives you meat in the evening and in the morning, the bread full, for the Lord hears your complaints which you make against Him. And what are we? Your complaints are not against us, but they are against the Lord. I would like to know something here. When we murmur against those who are the instruments of God, we murmur and we complain and we groan and we mumble against them, those who are used as instruments of uneasiness, whether justly or unjustly, we should do well to consider how much we, as His disciples, His followers, His people, truly reflect the character of God in our complaints. We should ponder on this. Those who quarrel with the reproofs and convictions of the world and are angry at their ministers when they are touched in the tender part or their toes are stepped on a little bit, when they complain and they mumble and they grumble against them, they know not what they do, for therein they strive with their Maker. That this forever stop the mouth of murmuring, to stop the mouth of complaining. Don't be complaining people, whining and crying about everything. That is a daring and piety to murmur God. When I'm up preaching and I say something and it steps on somebody's toes, if it's coming from the Scriptures, God's the one doing the toe stomping. Number two, he assures the people the supplies their needs what they want. And since they had flesh pots, they had pots for the meat, they should once have flesh or abundance of meat to put in it. That evening the bread, and the next morning, and also on the day thereon. Many are there whom say that they're better because they've been taught, but the Israelites were thus fed that they might be taught. He led them, he instructed them, in this instance he supplied them with manna. He gave them manna to eat. And besides the two things mentioned, when he intended to teach them by sending manna, by this you shall know that the Lord has brought you out of Egypt, that they were brought out of Egypt, plain enough. That should be plain enough. Hey, the Lord brought you out, he delivered you from Egypt. That should be plain enough that he intended to teach them by sending manna. That they were brought out of Egypt, strangely, staunchly, short-sighted as they were, they said Moses had brought them out. It wasn't Moses. It was God. God provided for them. Now God sent them manna to prove that he was no less infinite in power and in goodness, and he brought them out, and this could perfect what had begun. If Moses had only brought them out of Egypt, he could not thus have fed them. He couldn't have provided them with the food they needed. He couldn't have provided them with the water they needed. Moses was a man just like us. He couldn't give them all they needed to survive. It was the Lord's doing because he was with them. And so both were marvelous in their eyes, yet long afterwards they needed to be told that it wasn't Moses who gave them the manna from heaven. It was God. So verses 9 and 10, the Lord's presence. The Lord's presence, verse 9 and 10. Says this, Then Moses spoke to Aaron, say to all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord, and he has heard your complaints. Now it will come to pass, as Aaron spoke, the whole congregation, the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared to them in a cloud. It is at this point that Moses instructs Aaron to gather the people before the Lord. Hey, you need to get them together. They're going to see this. We want them to see this. Gather them up. This is going to prepare the people for God's response to their whining, their complaining, and their grumbling. Now, I've got a question. Is it just me, or does it seem that the people of Israel have a very unappreciative attitude toward what God has provided? They're very unappreciative. They're very unappreciative in nature. They complained. They grumbled. They were in captivity. They grumbled when they were in captivity. They grumbled now that they were out of captivity. They grumbled now that God had delivered them from that captivity. Whine, 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 whine is all they do. Now on the flip side of the coin, are we any different? Nope. We're not different. The truth of the matter is that we're no different than the people of Israel were. We become very discontented with what God has given us in our daily walk, with what God has blessed us with. We're always complaining. We're always moping around. If I had more money, oh, if I'd only had a better job, oh, if I'd only had better health, oh, if. On the flip side, how many times a day do you thank God for what he has done? Instead of saying, God, I need this, I want this. How many times do you thank him what he's blessed you with? Just food for thought. Verse 10. Now it came to pass that Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of Israel, children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. It is here that the people have seen the presence or the glory of the Lord in the cloud. In the previous verses, he has guided them in their exodus out of Egypt, protecting them from the Egyptians as they crossed the Red Sea. Now, in fact, they're constant complaining and grumbling by their attitude. If you just opened up your Bible and just read this point here, this account here in Israel's Exodus out of Egypt, one would think that their actions would seem that God had completely abandoned them, would it not? If you just open your Bibles right there, and you didn't read no further, but you read about their complaining, their moping, their grumbling, wouldn't it just seem like to give you the appearance that God had just left them? Amen. But we know that's not the case. We know different. We know He never left them. He never abandoned them. So B, Moses listens, verses 11 and 12. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, I have heard the complaints of the children of Israel. Speak to them, saying, at twilight they shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God. It is here that once again we find the people's grumbling being noted, and God is about to back up what He says He will do in a mighty big way. He's going to support what He says He'll do. He isn't just talking the talk. God is about to walk the walk with them, to show them that He means what He says. He's going to walk the walk. The people were wrapped up in their discontent, and they had neglected to notice what God had provided them with already. God is about to prove and provide for them once more with food in another miraculous way. So next, number 4, provisions. Verse 13. So it was that the quail came in the evening and covered up the camp. And in the morning the dew lay around the ground of the camp. Here the meat that God had promised them had delivered to them through Moses. The message through Moses is given. God also gives them the promise that there will be bread in the morning. He provides them bread in the morning as well. Now, I don't know about you, is it just me that if you were to think that if you just see the marvelous, miraculous signs that God had done, if you just witnessed all this and what God had just performed, would you learn to trust Him a little more? Yeah. On the flip side again, look how God's blessed us. Look how we have things that's been answered in our life that there's no answer for. No way to explain, but it's been given to us. Look at the miraculous things that's happened in our life that you can't explain other than God. How I've seen things that's happened with people having massive amounts of cancer and all of a sudden go to the doctor and, hey, we can't find anything. It's gone. I can't explain it. I can't. God did it. It's the miraculous wonders of God is all it is. God also gives them the promise they'll have bread in the morning. He gives them food. I mean, wow, look at all the wonders He's already done for the Israelites. Look at these amazing feats that God's already accomplished. The amazing acts that God's already demonstrated. How He's demonstrated His power and His assurance that He's with them. He gives them that fine assurance that He's with them. How God constantly provided for them. They should know that God is God without a doubt. And that He's not going to abandon them. I'm sure we can think of events that happen in our life we know that it would. There's sometimes I just go look up in heaven and say, you know what, God, thank you. That was all you, it wasn't me, it was all you. Why don't we trust Him more? Be manna for the people. He gets manna for the people. Verses 14 and 15. When a layer of dew had lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a small substance, as fine as frost on the ground. So when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, what is it? What is this? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, this is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. The bread that came from heaven appeared as the dew on each morning, as a residue from the dew. It was small, it was fine on the ground. It was therefore not easy to gather. They had to work for it. It wasn't easy for them to gather up. And it had to be swept up from the ground. And verse 31 further describes the bread from heaven is like that of a coriander seed. About the size of a sesame seed. Sweet like honey in Numbers 11:7, where it tells us. And it says the color is a bdellium, which is a pearl-like color. It was either baked or boiled. The Jewish legend supposedly tells us this. Now, Jewish legend, it tells us this, that the bread from heaven tasted like only the desire of a certain dish. And no sooner had he thought of it, the manna flavored the dish that he desired. The same food and a different taste to everyone else who partook of it, according to his age. Little children, they say it tasted like milk. To the strong youths, it tasted like bread. To the old men, it tasted like honey. To the sick alike, it tastes like barley steeped in the oil and honey. But they also wrote that manna was bitter in the mouth of the Gentiles. Jewish legend also supposedly tells us that they could sweep it up off the desert floor, and not have any dirt in it. These legends say that God sent the manna. He first sent the north wind to sweep the floor of the desert, and then a rain to wash it clean. Then the manna descended clean on the ground. A small, round substance. It is difficult precisely to identify what this substance was. Some researchers identify with what the Arabs today call man, M-A-N-N, which is formed when a tiny insect punctures the bark of a tamarisk tree and drinks the sap and exudes a clear liquid that solidifies as a sugary globular substance when it hits the ground. And when the sun comes up, it melts quickly and disappears. Though the bread from heaven may have been similar to the modern day man in the Sinai Peninsula, it wasn't the same thing. The modern day man never appears in great quantities. It doesn't last year round. It's confined to a small geographical area or region. The purpose of giving the bread from heaven was not only to provide for the material needs of the Israelites, but also to teach them lessons of dependence upon God. Depending on Him, which is demonstrated in passages like Deuteronomy chapter 8:3 says, "So He humbled and allowed you to hunger, and He fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that He might make you know that man shall not live by bread alone, but man lives by the very words that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord." When God puts us in a place of need, He wants us to do more. He wants to do more for us than just meet our need. He goes above and beyond. He wants to teach us an eternal lesson, how we can trust Him. Feeding Israel through the bread from heaven was an example of God's way of cooperating with man. He cooperated with him. Oh, the patience God must have. Israel could not bring the manna, and God would not gather it for them. Each had to do their part. Animals are often taught through their food. When they could not be reached in any other way, they had been instructed by their hunger and their thirst by their feeding. C.H. Spurgeon tells us that. So when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, "This is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat." When God's provision comes, we often do not recognize it. God met the needs of Israel. He did it in a way they did not recognize it. So in conclusion, as the children of Israel entered into a desolate territory, following the exodus from Egypt, they became insecure about their food, their provisions, how they were going to be provided for, what God was going to do for them, how they were going to make it. Despite their collective discontent, their grumbling, their moaning, their complaining about every little thing, the Lord provided for them in an unmistakable way. Unmistakable visual aid that shows how He would provide for their needs. He had not let go of the rope. He held on to the rope. The truth in humanity is always live in uncertain times. Every generation has viewed its times as unsettled and perilous in one way or another. One is only to read from the words of the passage like Psalm 74 to get a sense of the author's personal anguish and frustration with God over why He does not act more quickly to help His people, rescue His people from the desperate times that surround them. "Oh God, why have you rejected us forever? Why does your anger smolder against the sheep of your pasture?" Psalm 74:1. "How long," he pleads, will the enemy mock you? How long will he plead? How long will he make fun of you? Will the foe revile your name and forever? The psalmist says times are often very uncertain, is what he's saying here. Our times are no different. There is an abundance of turmoil that takes place in many areas of our lives. We have frequently expressed our anxiety over uncertainty, much as the Israelites did through their murmurings against God. They're complaining, they're moping, they're whining against the leadership of Israel to the national level. The response of living in such times is to return the truth, and the focus of today's lesson is this: God remains faithful even during times of uncertainty. The uncertain times of our lives, God's faithful. Trust in Him. He'll provide. He will help you out. Our human minds can often wander. They can focus on the problem instead of the solution. They can focus on what has taken place versus what hasn't taken place, and begin to lose trust. God's always faithful.